Yeah, you presented very nicely activities in machine translation and localization. You just mentioned speech translation. I mean, regarding speech translation, you both need machine translation, but also speech recognition and speech synthesis in all the target and source languages. So how do you see dealing with this aspect of covering both recognition and synthesis in all languages?
There's, I think, a variety of projects which have been looking to go and get very multilingual recognition and synthesis. For speech synthesis, I think it's there is quite an interesting trend at the moment. So statistical speech synthesis has changed the game over the past few years, but it's still the case that what we call the synthesis front end, the text processing, is largely manual. And I think in the last year or two, there's been some very interesting work to basically automate that using machine learning approaches and web crawling approaches. So I think in particular for low resource languages, there's a significant possibility to come with speech synthesis across languages. And I guess I don't really want to advertise another project we have, but we do have another project called Simple for All, which is basically aimed at developing, again, it's an open source project building on Festival and HTS, which are open source synthesis frameworks, which is looking at automatic multilingual speech synthesis, which has some emphasis on looking at the text processing as well as the acoustic modeling. In speech recognition, I think looking for multilingual speech recognition has, I mean, it's been a big area for 20 years, right? I can remember having projects 20 years ago where we were trying to basically port acoustic models from one language to another. I think it is actually the case that there have been modeling and algorithmic advances whereby it's possible to port speech recognition systems from one language to another using only a relatively small amount of data, where small is kind of hours in the single figures in the target language. So I think there are algorithmic changes which is starting to make low resource multilingual speech recognition come closer, and both in the EU and particularly in the US actually there's a big push for this as well.
Yeah, Khalid Shukri from the European Language Resource Association. I wanted to challenge one of the statements that Steve and Philip made about the language and the less resourced languages. I think you mentioned Basque as one of the languages that lack resources, which is wrong, even compared to languages like French or Italian. And we basically lack the data to make such accurate statements. And I think we really need to dig into the surveys that are conducted here and there to make sure which languages are well equipped compared to the others.
So I think the statement about low resource languages was, I guess, take it as purely from the engineer's point of view in what is currently easily available. And but I completely take your point.
I'm Spiros Pilos from European Commission from DG Translation, and in terms of success of Moses, I think that the governmental institutions should also, and international institutions should also be mentioned, which are usually ignored. They're not mentioned. It's just a commercial and academic. And I just want to know whether this comes into your perspectives, let's say, how you can support this special type of institutions. And another thing, another example is the Moses for Mere Mortals, for example. You mentioned it as a project. In fact, it was a couple of translators of the European Commission who in their free time developed this. So it's exactly because there was nothing available for institutions to use, or individual translators to set up their own system easily. So the main question is how does support for something that is neither academic nor commercial comes into your approach to promoting and supporting Moses? Thank you.
So I'm obviously not the expert to answer this, but it's my understanding that the Moses Core Support Action is interested in building a community across all researchers and users of Moses. So although the slides may have concentrated on researchers and commercial organizations, it absolutely includes governmental and EU organizations as well, who I think we all recognize are kind of huge users of machine translation and are hence in a unique position to drive both the technology and the infrastructure forward. And I think it's my understanding that the TAUS isn't purely looking at commercial, but is looking at all users of translation systems.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Okay, maybe I have a last one to Steve again. So he seems to be the most popular here at this session with questions. So you mentioned several times the interest and the participation and the use of commercial users of Moses. Is there any kind of contribution in the direction from the commercial users to the development of Moses, or it's only one-way interaction in the sense that only the commercial users are gaining gaining profit from using Moses?
My belief is it works both ways, but I'm absolutely not in a position to give you the details. It's